Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. Also just produced the movie Show Her the Money, and we just launched the Silicon Valley Women Founders Fund, which I'm a general partner with John Majeski. So it's a busy year this year, and we are super excited to have Invest in Her today with an amazing guest. She's starting the new Harbor Fund, which is going to be a creative way for philanthropists to participate in investing in movies. How exciting is that? She is also the Director of Client Relations at Capita Financial Network. Please welcome to the show, Lindsay Hadley. Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Good to have you on. We were so lucky to meet at the panel called Purpose and Profit at the SIE event here in Los Angeles recently, which was awesome. And got to know each other, that we were kind of in the same space, trying to help women, especially in this space, to raise money. And you are launching this really cool, creative Harbor Fund, which is kind of like a really groundbreaking fund, teaching people that are typically philanthropists how to use their DAFs and other means to fund major movies, right? I mean, this is so exciting.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes. There's been a lot of people in the recent years. It's kind of an idea as time has come, starting to recognize that leveraging philanthropic dollars for film and television is a really useful utility when we think about impact. Because at the end of the day, as jaded as we can get about the Hollywood world, they are the most powerful PR engine in the world. And movies and TV shows do influence culture. In fact, those are the kings and queens of our Western culture. And sometimes that's much to our dismay, because some of what comes out of there doesn't reflect the core values in America. But ultimately,
just to stop you there 1 second, that can be good or bad, right?
Yeah,
it can
exactly.
be used to influence for the greater good.
Yes.
And also, sometimes I look at these movies and I think, why are they making these movies about destruction and things like that? I feel like it perpetuates it, don't you?
Yes, I think that's right. Like, at the end of the day, as human beings, the most powerful thing we do is we tell stories to ourselves and each other. And, I think about the way that culture is designed and everything. You've started this incredible movement of helping women have a different story around money. And at the end of the day, that dollar bill, that currency we've created, we just have a story about our shared agreement around that piece of paper. Our entire economy is propped up in all of our transactions on stories that we're telling ourselves. And at the end of the day, the businesses, our brands, the confidence we show up in a room, whether we see people in short-term transactional, what can I get out of it, or abundant long-term, relational equity, however we look at the world, are just stories we're telling ourselves. And so I believe deeply in the power of changing culture through film and television. And we want to partner with some of the most benevolent benefactors out there to help commission works of art that change our culture for better, that bring more human empathy, more capacity for holding nuance and polarity, understanding that two things can be true at the same time, and paradox, things that we're starting to lose a lot, through our sound bites in social media and the algorithms that perpetuate one side thinking. I'm really excited to be a part of a group of people that genuinely, I say with all my heart, are like a million times better than me. Like the people that I've surrounded myself, I just want them to rub off on me, their goodness, their capacity, and their character. And by the grace of God, I've been able to amalgamate some of, I think, the best critters on planet Earth to kind of tackle this problem. And I'm so, so humbled by it.
Well, that is amazing. And I love what you're saying. And I want to talk about how you got from what you're doing to where you are with this. And just wanted to mention, I couldn't agree with you more that film and television is what helps shape culture. It's why we made the movie Show Her the Money, to let people know how underfunded women are in the venture capital world, in the entrepreneurial world, and how that adversely affects the planet. Like, we need all of the brain power, right? Making movies, creating scientific projects, technologies. We need all of that brain power, right? So I couldn't agree with you more on that. I want to talk about your background, because you have such an incredible background that brought you to here. And then later in the show, I want to talk about the movies that you're working on. You have such great big name Hollywood celebrities involved in this project, which is very exciting. But first, so you're coming to us from Utah. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Did you grow up there?
I did. I grew up in a very small town in Utah where, again, talk about stories. There was not a really much narrative around me around women in business and women in leadership. I was a very hyper conservative and LDS culture where most of the women in my purview were stay-at-home mothers. And while I think that is the most incredible, beautiful, benevolent work, I just never had any kind of story to be told that a woman could be building, a fund or running businesses or doing what I'm doing today. And so it's changing. The culture is changing significantly. And again, some for the best and some for the worst. And we're seeing women take more leadership and lean into some of their gifting and having shared responsibilities at home, but also I do believe there is an innate gifting of nurturing in women. And I think to bring that into the workplace or into the financial sector or any sector is only a good thing. I think diversity of thought, we need each other, and diversity of culture and come from, all of that just brings so much value to.
Well, and they say the most profitable companies are those run by both men and women, because they do bring two different perspectives to the table and together make it a stronger business or culture. So yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. As the director of client relations for Capita Financial Network, tell me what your position is there, and what does the Capita Network do?
Yeah, and I'll just back up a tiny bit, but my background was 10 years of consulting in the nonprofit sector. As I mentioned, I never had career ambitions. I never had like a view that I wanted to be this or that. I always knew I would just be a mom.
And you were very involved with this famous global citizen project.
Yes, it kind of happened to me. I mean, I was putting one foot in front of the other, and due to some circumstances in my life, I had found myself as the primary breadwinner in my marriage and in my family. And I only thought that I would just do philanthropy and charity work as like a side thing, as just something that I was following my passion. I never, ever imagined it would be to provide for my family. I have 3 little boys now. I'm married to an amazing man who's now a general contractor and builds homes. But at the time, back in 2008, he was a stockbroker. And when the market collapsed, I found myself being the primary breadwinner in nonprofit, where we demonize overhead and don't pay people very well, no matter how talented. But I found myself raising tens and tens of millions of dollars for charity, and I built a little boutique consultancy called Hadley Impact Consulting, where we were like a one-stop shop for social good. We did everything from fundraising, event production, strategy, PR.
Wait, it wasn't so little. You raised over $100 million.
It was a little team, but we punched way above our weight. We did. We raised over $100 million for our clients, and our campaigns and events leveraged billions. And Global Citizen was one of those clients and projects. I was the founding executive producer and the founding chief development officer of Global Citizen. It's kind of like Live Aid of our generation. It takes place in New York City every year on the eve of the eve of the United Nations General Assembly meeting. It's during that weekend. We did an event in Australia during CHUGM, which is the Commonwealth Dignitary World Meeting. And we had leveraged $118 million for polio, putting on this concert, which forayed us into doing that in Central Park, where we leveraged billions for the world's poor. And that put me in this epicenter of working with some of the most influential people in culture, both in the private sector, the public sector, the faith communities. I found myself in positions and at seats of tables of power, and was consulting and supporting leadership around the world. And Totally humbling, just blew my mind. Again, never imagined the trajectory of my career or my life, but ultimately for the last decade, it helped multinational corporations, NGOs, religious institutions, high profile individuals like celebrities and otherwise, and even multilateral, like, governmental organizations. So I found myself really up to all kinds of amazing capers with amazing people doing all kinds of good in the world. And
Let me stop you there. Like amazing people, like isn't like Richard Branson involved with Global Citizen and some other people of caliber, right?
yeah, amazing people. I mean, at Richard Branson's now supporting Harvard Fund, my new initiative, but which I'm so grateful for. In 2 weeks, I'll be on Necker Island with him, and we're putting together this like our annual gala, like our inaugural.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He does good things with his money, doesn't he?
I mean, I've been super impressed by him, and I think that anyone in that kind of leadership position to make it about impact and blessing the world is what a gift to society. And he's
And
very,
you know what? To that point, this is the whole mission of what we do with Show Her the Money, with She Angel Investors, with our fund, Silicon Valley Women Founders Fund, is we're trying to help women understand it's okay to invest and make money so that you can make a difference in the world and help other people. And
that's right.
a perfect example of that.
Exactly. That's absolutely.
It doesn't have to just be charity, right?
No, no. In fact, private sector is a very effective tool to be a steward of resources that can affect change.
Yes.
And actually, I'm desperately always trying to campaign for nonprofit sector to use more private sector thinking and for-profit thinking. I actually really don't appreciate the term nonprofit. I actually think
I agree with you.
I think they should be called for-purpose organizations.
I love that. We've got to change that.
We really should. We really should, because we need to use the same levers that we use in the private sector, like spend money on talent, reward, and in meritocracy where there's value created. We need to take risks, and we need to spend money on marketing. All things that we know, if you had your hands tied behind your back in the private sector to do that, you would utterly fail. And so we always wonder why the nonprofit sector doesn't really have the level of impact. Well, when you make it play by a different rule book, it'll suffer deeply. And I actually made this is kind of the foray into what I'm doing now, but about 2 years ago, I was turning 40, and I was like, man, I'm tired of this eat what you kill consulting world. I mean, I loved it. And I selected the most incredible human beings and this really breadth of skill set and knowledge in different verticals, and really felt grateful for the journey. But I was tired of the eat what you kill model in consulting. And I wanted to build something that had a perpetual structure that actually could, compound and be exponential over time in financial purview for myself. And so talking about abundance, right? Just as a woman being like, wait a minute, I'm operating at the highest levels in my industry. Why am I still not making very much money? I need to rethink. I need to think some new thoughts. So I actually approached Michael Littledyke, who's the founder of Capita Financial Network. It's an RIA based in Utah, and he's managing just under $2 billion a year, his firm. And I said, hey, you know me, you know my skills. Like, do you ever have like a potential job for me? And he said, write your job description. And he and Cassie Byers, who's the CEO who hired me ultimately, were so wonderful in letting me like play to my strengths and also adapt for my weaknesses. And they have the most incredible team and culture. And they've been so generous with letting me do what I love to do best, which is to network, gather people, create experiences, create deep relational bonds and trust equity in others. And we've been doing that at Capita. We kind of created a good old girls club in finance. And so we focused predominantly on women. Even if the women are not the primary principals in their wealth purview in their marriages, they have deep influence about who they trust to manage their money with their spouses, their husbands. But right now in culture, as you've pointed out with your work, Catherine, women are becoming online as the stewards of resources like never before at exponential rates, both being the inheritors of next gen wealth, being the principals who actually driving the value and the wealth in their families and being the primary breadwinners. And we're seeing more women in leadership and having more equity. And so it's a real time to invest in women. And quite frankly, the finance world has mostly been a good old boys club. And most deals in business or most trust equity in business takes place on a golf course or, courtside to a basketball game or on a private jet on a hunting trip. And women don't get invited and don't get courted and don't get considered in most of these situations in this sector. We saw that. We thought it was like shooting fish in a barrel, like just pour into these women and watch what happens. And the funny part is, and I don't love that phrase, it should be feeding a bunch of fish in a barrel with one piece of bread or something like. But ultimately, we ended up just like pouring into women, and it's been insane. Like even if they don't become our clients, they already have financial advisor. They're referring people, and they're supported, and they're working, so collaboratively. We're on a private jet now, taking them to go do humanitarian work in Africa. And, instead they're sitting there telling each other, oh, you're going to IPO. Let me give you information, or don't work with that marketing agency. That didn't go so well for me. Let me tell you about venture capital money when you take it, the strings attached, whatever it is. I mean, there's so much abundance with women. I haven't seen the same kind of posturing that sometimes we see in the male, masculine structure. We see when they feel safe. If women feel threatened, they can be kind of rough. But if they feel safe and they feel nurtured and they know that there's abundance as the tone and the setting, it's just remarkable the kind of radical, reckless generosity they have with each other. And it's like a rising tide that lifts up all boats. So that's what I've been doing at Capita, and it allowed me to build a book of business that has given me the financial freedom now in the last 2 years to then do my most passionate work, which is co-founding Harbor Fund, which is this.
And let me just say, shout out and kudos to Capita Financial.
Yes.
Having the vision to see women are coming into trillions of dollars in the coming decade, and that they need women, smart women, representatives at their entity like you to bring in the women and create a safe space and community. So no wonder they're successful, that they're visionaries to see how to address what is ultimately coming. And those financial institutions that don't recognize that or adjust for that will be left behind.
Well, I thank you for that shout out, and Capita deserves it. It's such, from the leadership down, a culture of generosity and other centricness and long-term accounting and relational in their approach. It's so sincere. In fact, they do something really remarkable. They cap their advisors at 220 plus clients so that they don't get overextended, so that the bottom of their book doesn't become like chopped liver, like a lot of financial advisory firms and situations. They have 700, 900 clients. You can't have a real relationship generally with that many people.
Right. And I'm glad that they recognized what talent you bring to the table. And I love that you then had the opportunity to launch your own Harbor Fund. So let's wrap by talking about that, because that's really exciting what you're doing. It's really very revolutionary.
Thank you, Catherine. What a gift it is to be seen, right? And have people like appreciate you and also like see all of you in your totality, even your weaknesses. Of course, I've got shortness in my game, and they sign up for it and they're like, we're willing to pay that tax, and here's how we'll support you. Like, I have this amazing team around us to help. But I'm so blessed to be able, and Capita's been so generous in supporting me and being able to found a 501c3. It's apparently kind of a brand new structure. It's just the IRS was trying to wrap mind around it and actually kind of challenged us for, like a precedent. And there has been other funds like this in social impact investing. But essentially, we're a venture capital shaped film fund, but it's a nonprofit. And so how it works is benefactors donate to a specific film project, almost like a special purpose vehicle in investment, if people understand that term. They picked this specific movie. And let's use movies of the past to kind of illustrate. But movies like Blood Diamond or Hotel Rwanda or Aaron Brockovich or the movie Taken or the movie Schindler's List. These are all cause-based films that have important messages that have a social good component to it, and that bring awareness, build empathy, educate, and cut through the zeitgeist of culture for change at scale. And so imagine if somebody, we're making like the Aaron Brockovich of tomorrow, right? A philanthropist can come in and want to underwrite the storytelling around corporate greed and the heroicness of people who stand up to it, especially a woman, as the protagonist. And they could executive produce it by donating to Harbor, let's say $1 million to the movie. They then get executive producer credit. Our nonprofit then takes an equity position in that film or TV show, like any venture capital fund, pair pursue with whatever the cap table is for that specific film project and that production company. And then any returns come back into the fund, including the principal and the carry, and stays in that fund in perpetuity as an evergreen war chest for good filmmaking. And that's Harbor Fund. It's a really elegant solution where philanthropists can not count on a return for themselves personally, but understand that if the film is profitable, which is rare in Hollywood, it's a tough sport, that there will be this ongoing perpetual nature in the fund. And so we're really excited about that. It's a real elegant new solution, and ideas time has come, we really feel.
I love that. And, so many families that have been fortunate enough to build wealth often have their donor advisory fund, which we talked about on our purpose and profit panel. And the money sits there being unused or sometimes donated to nonprofits for, charitable reasons. But we're hoping through this program and all the good work you're doing and what we're doing that people see, oh no, that money can be used to be put into films that help shape culture. And what better usage of their money? And then, like you said, if there is a profit, it comes back into their donor advisory fund, and then or back into your harbor fund, so that you're building the opportunity for there to be more films of that nature. So, I'm glad we're waking people up to the fact that their charitable dollars sitting in a DAF or a foundation or whatever can be used to make movies, and not just any movies, but ones that actually help impact the world, right? And how exciting is that?
It's so exciting, Catherine. I think a lot of people have asked me because we incorporated 6 months ago and we've raised over $5 million and deployed it into 7 different projects. And we've gotten a lot of tailwind. Like you mentioned, big names. We've had a lot of big names get around the fund and support it, from Richard Branson to Mark Burnett, who's, the prolific producer, who did Survivor, The Voice, Apprentice, Shark Tank. I mean, just incredible. Geraldine Dreyfus, who's kind of the mayor of impact documentaries. She's won more Oscars than anybody I know as a producer. She was responsible for films like Biggest Little Farm and The Cove and Won't You Be My Neighbor, and films like Born into Brothels. And she's done her 200 IMDb credits. We have people like the senior vice president of Paramount Pictures, Tony Bone, and people like Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman. And in addition to that, we have A-list celebrities like Jared Butler and Katie Couric as a journalist, and people like David Oyelowo. We're so lucky to have these amazing people galvanizing around the fund and attending our events and participating. We're making films with people like, Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and so excited about these big names who are validating this structure and the elegance of it. What's really exciting to me is historically, philanthropists, people have asked me, like, why now? Like, why has no one ever done this? Like, what is it? Because it kind of seems dumb smart, this idea. Yeah. And I just say to them, well, historically, philanthropists have demonized the idea of overhead, going back to that original comment. And the idea of like a Leonardo DiCaprio getting his $17 million appearance fee in Blood Diamond, like they couldn't stomach the idea of writing a philanthropic check for that. And the reality is, though, because Leo was in that movie and because it had the best writers and producers and production and marketing value behind it, the whole world saw that movie. And as a result, it literally changed the landscape of how we mine today and the ethical supply chain of the mining industry. De Beers changed their policies at a global scale because of that movie. I was recently speaking to the executives at UNICEF, and the movie Lion that Nicole Kidman is in, that Dev Patel starred in, where he was a little boy from India that got adopted, and his family, he was placed in an orphanage due to poverty. And so he goes back and tries to find his family of origin through this heroic hero's journey of like finding and coming to himself. And that movie was seen by some executives at UNICEF, and as a result, changed the way they care for vulnerable children. They created a program called the Lion Project, named after the movie, which I don't believe Nicole Kidman or Dev Patel are even aware of, and had gotten 1.2 million children back into their families out of institutional care, to their families of origin, by supporting through prevention, reunification, and adoption. And I just love that film can have that kind of impact at scale. I mean, if you think about the movies and this way they've made you see the world, I have scenes in Shawshank Redemption and in Schindler's List and in Gone with the Wind and in movies like Dances with Wolves that have seared into me values that I can never forget. one of my favorite lines of all time is from the movie Les Miserables. Although I'd seen the play and listened to the music, there was something about the delivery on screen at scale of Hugh Jackman and the line when he says to love another person is to see the face of God. It like literally shifted my life. And I'm so passionate about this because I really believe if we can tell better stories, it both reflects who we are as a people, but also the stories can also change us internally. And this beautiful virtuous cycle is what we're trying to go after.
Movies and television so powerful, and a lot of people probably are using their philanthropic dollars for great causes, but not even realizing that things like Harbor Fund exist where they could put money into making films about something that they're also very passionate about,
Right?
With some top name entertainment that they probably would never have access to. So very exciting, this project that you've launched. People can check out Harbor Fund. What's the best way for people to reach you, Lindsay?
Yeah, if you go to harbor-fund.org, or you can also find me, I'm Lindsay S. Hadley on Instagram or LinkedIn, Lindsay Smoot Hadley. My maiden name is Smoot, so Lindsay Smoot Hadley on LinkedIn, and connect with me. We'd love to learn more about you, and we'd love to have your story be a part of ours.
Great. Well, and for those that are just listening and not watching today, Lindsay spells her name Lindsay, and then it's Hadley, Hadley. We appreciate everybody tuning in today. What amazing guest you are. And
Thanks, Catherine.
the work you do, just going to be cheering you on. For those that want to find Lindsay, look her up on LinkedIn. You can also find me, Catherine Gray, Catherine with a C, Gray with an A, on LinkedIn. And then, of course, we have sheangelinvestors.com site. And you can also check out both showherthemoneymovie.com and also our Silicon Valley Women Founders Fund. We are all about perpetuating women into the venture capital space and into entrepreneurship, and helping women to succeed in that arena. So the world will be a better place if everybody has an opportunity to build wealth, make impact, and help women be able to create their innovations that will impact the planet. So thank you, Lindsay, for the great work you're doing. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.